Just Baseball Show for Tuesday, June 3rd. As always, it is presented by BetMGM. And today we're doing a little top 100 update. I'm going to ask Aram kind of rapid fire 100 to 1. Hey, why this guy here? Why this guy here? Why this guy here? Are you excited for this?
Yeah, it's always a blast for me. It's kind of rapid fire. Test me to see how much I remember on all the update, and if I stutter or I think have a bad response, then maybe you just throw that ranking out the window and just don't respect it.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm going to ask, hey, why CAG's at undisclosed number? Because we're going to get to that and you're going to stutter a little bit. And I'm going to say, wow, why do you think
Well,
he's 60?
yeah, it's
So
it's the chase rate, isn't it?
it's the chase rate. This is going to be the most strenuous 50 minutes of your life. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I think it's more strenuous when I have Peter because Peter always does the great questions, but does the like, I got to put you on the spot here, and then asks me like the toughest, like this guy or this guy, and I freak out. So I don't think it'll be too difficult. I think I can do it.
Okay, let's start with number 100 here. It's Brandon Sproat of the New York Mets. And we're going to go again, like any rankings that jump out to me, 100 through 1. And I'm just going to say why. Why Sproat at 100? And I'm going to frame that as why did he fall so much, right? Because typically 100 is a guy that you want to stamp and say, hey, you know what? This is someone that, I'm higher on than the industry, and they're typically not a top 100 prospect. Sproat is consensus a top 100 prospect. By many, he's top 50. Why is he all the way down at 100 right now?
It's just been tough to watch, to be honest. Just the stuff is backed up, the command is backed up. It's been inconsistent, and we saw that ever since he got to AAA for the Mets there. But I thought I first, and we talked about on the call up, like, okay, maybe it's just tighter zone, more disciplined hitters, he'll settle in. But now we've got a pretty decent sample size of starts in AAA. I mean, this year alone, we've got 11 starts, and then last year he made, I believe, seven there. And it's just been pretty frustrating in terms of the lack of swing and miss. This is a guy that was at points last year touching 102. Now this year, he's still throwing hard, but he's averaging 96. The characteristics aren't quite as sharp. And the secondaries, I think hitters are just laying off of them for the most part. I mean, the only pitch that he's really landing for a strike is that sinker consistently. So you're seeing a walk rate that's ballooned to 11% and a strikeout rate that's dropped to 16 and a half. It helps that he's getting ground balls. And that's something that I think really does elevate his floor, but it's not like he's 21 like Jonah Tong. Like he's
Yeah.
going to be 25 by the end of this season. And it's just been a pretty prolonged stretch here of the stuff backing up, the command backing up, and just not really much swing and miss. He's been a ground ball pitcher, and that's not who Brandon Sproat should be.
Yeah, Sproat throws too hard to be a ground ball pitcher, but that kind of feels like I don't know if oxymoron is the right grammatical term for this, but it feels a little hypocritical because he throws 102, and I don't know. It's interesting to look at what he has become when he was looking like a guy who could strike out 12 hitters per nine and be that next Dylan Cease type of guy, and that's
Yeah.
just not who he is.
He was striking out 28% of batters last year. And you had the four seam whiff that was playing, then you had the sinker off of that. It seems like hitters are not respecting the secondaries as much, and then the fastball has just lost some of that life to it.
Clumping of two Blue Jay arms in the low 90s, Ricky Tiedemann and Trey Savage back to back. If you hadn't just done the Blue Jays top prospects, would you Savage be ahead of Ricky Tiedemann?
Well, he was in that ranking, so that was the hard part. But it's like every start that you Savage has where he's starting to look better and better and kind of solidify this impressive start to his pro career, I think you could start to say, okay, maybe that guy's ahead of Tiedemann there, right? Where okay, Tiedemann's ceiling is so high, but we've barely seen him throw
Yeah.
since he's been drafted, aside from the breakout year that he had. That at what point does Savage what he's doing now kind of tip that over? And I would say a couple more high A starts where he continues to be dominant and he probably does end up leapfrogging a Tiedemann there. But at the time of the Blue Jays top prospect list that we put out at the beginning of the season, Savage had only thrown at low A, and that was by design. I think they wanted to be careful with him, have him thrown by the complex. We've seen several other organizations do that. Travis Sakura threw the whole year in low A, close to the team. They didn't really care. They said just go out there and do your thing.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see if Savage would miss the same number of bats and same level of just in zone whiff and chase at the high A and double A level. So far, it's been that in high A. He has seen the walk rate creep up a little bit, so that is something to monitor, but he has overwhelmed high A hitters as well. So I would say with a couple more high A starts where he's really looking impressive, and obviously Tiedemann's you're just waiting for him to come back, there's a very real chance where he ends up leapfrogging him. But it was this wait and see where we've at least seen Tiedemann show that he can dominate major league hitters. It's
Yeah.
just, will he be available to do it? So it's a very strange comparison, and it was really tough. And that's why I had to just put him side by side because technically, again, you had Yasav or Tiedemann just ahead of him in those Blue
Right.
Jays rankings. But also just a little bit more optimism around Tiedemann, positive reports coming off of the TJ and his progress and where he's headed. And you start to dig back into maybe the litany of injuries that he had, and you start to wonder how much of that was really just a product or a byproduct of that elbow just needing to be repaired and him trying to get by with it because it was mostly just forearm, biceps, all nerve in the elbow. Well, that's all taken care of now, hopefully, and we'll see how he bounces back.
Is there anybody else in this clumping from 100 to 90 that you want to shout out here? I obviously you've got some guys that you're higher on than most. Batanti is not a guy that is cracking very many top 100s. Eric Batanti in Milwaukee, Tyson Lewis in Cincinnati is not cracking very many top 100s. Is there somebody that jumps out in this 90 to 100 for you?
You know, Badante's a guy that got off to a bit of a slow start, and it was great. We just talked about him with the assistant director of player development for the Milwaukee Brewers, Brenton Del Chiaro, who talked about the work ethic and just everything that he does. And literally right after that interview, he's played 2 games. He has 4 home runs in that span. The
Nice.
power is so ridiculous, but the whiff has been prevalent here this year. So it's just one of those high ceiling, low floor, wait and see guys. Tyson Lewis is cut from the same cloth with the Cincinnati Reds. And I think what's interesting with Lewis is a guy that was just taken in the 2024 class, one of the more interesting high school bats. I don't think anybody expected him to have this much power. They're still just playing him at the complex. They're easing him into full season ball, and I think there's probably a reason for that, right? There's a little bit of swing and miss. He definitely chases a good bit, but he had a home run 115 miles per hour already. This guy's going to be 19 until next year, and we saw him hit a ground ball at like 119 that got very popular on social media there. So Lewis having the potential for plus power here, I think really elevates him because he can run. He's an interesting athlete. So that was enough for me to say, okay, he may not hit enough. We don't know yet. But if you're popping 119s and you're turning in plus run times as a left-handed hitting shortstop, I'm going to put you in the back end of the top 100 and hope that, it comes together because the upside is just tantalizing enough. I think where I don't think teams would take 100 prospects over him. Same
Yeah.
story, but a little bit different with Braylor Guerrero of the Rays, where Guerrero's been hurt each of the last 2 years, but he's one of the highest priced international free agents they've ever signed. He's still just 18 years old, despite missing, much of the last 2 seasons with a shoulder issue. He can run. He can play. I think a solid corner, might even have a chance to get by in center field. And I mean, he is putting up plus exit velocities for his age already in low A and putting together a pretty good season so far. So Guerrero with the Rays, just left-hander with that much power and that speed combination. Again, some risk that he may not hit enough, some
Yeah.
injury concern as well. But the ceiling is, top 20 prospect in baseball if it all works out.
Moving into the next clumping of 10, 90 to 81. People may look at this list and say, Aram, you've got a 22-year-old catcher through 41 games in AAA, hitting 325, walking as much as he's striking out, and ripping a 921 OPS. Why is Harry Ford all the way down at 88?
He wasn't on the list before, so it is a bump up for him. He's been a really difficult player to assess because you've seen these ebbs and flows, and the path is just interesting. Where at one point the defense wasn't great, but he was starting to actually slug more than people would have thought. And you have always seen the walks. The walks have been consistent throughout, but then they started experimenting with him in left field a little bit. You started to wonder, is it going to come together for him defensively as a catcher? And then last year, I thought was his most disappointing year, all things considered. It may not be that way statistically. I don't have the year by year in front of me, but I think it probably would be statistically. His swing regressed. He did improve defensively, and that did help his case, but he was really struggling with velocity. The mechanics were a bit wonky, very heavy on the front foot, drifty onto that front side, which I think caused him to be rushed at the plate. And he only hit 7 home runs despite a 36% ground ball rate. So you have a guy that's kind of selling out for lift, but not really slugging. Then he emerges this year, and He shores up things in the box, much more consistent with the lower half, much more balanced. The EVs are up. And I know it's the PCL, and that's the difficult part as well, but the EVs are up. The ground ball rate has crept up, but I'm actually fine with that because he's hitting the ball harder and his contact rates are better because the swing mechanics are improved. The approach is still elite in AAA, which is really encouraging to see. And the defense has gotten to a point where I think you could say it's big league average. They put the left field experiment on ice for now, and I think that's because of how much the glove is developed behind the dish. But the reason why he's 88 and or upper 80s and not a little bit higher is I still think the ceiling is a bit limited. You have a fringy, maybe average at best hit tool, and then you have fringy, maybe average at best power, but then it's going to be accentuated by a 12% chase rate that's going to result in plenty of walks. And now there's some pressure off of the bat because he looks like he can be an average catcher. So that's a guy that could be, an average everyday catcher with some unique components to his game. But that ability to walk is going to really have to be sustained at the big league level. And I do wonder if, big league arms say, well, a lot of his production has come from grinding out at bats and drawing walks. Let's go right after him and see if he can beat us. And maybe he does, but that could also affect that on base percentage, which has been kind of a key component of his game through the minor leagues.
It's funny, like I'm just looking around the league and I'm thinking, who could Harry Ford get you at the trade deadline? Because Seattle would want offensive help. If they're putting the left field thing on ice, that probably means they look more at him as a trade asset than a piece of their
Mm-hmm.
future if he's catching full time, because they just made Cal Raleigh one of five or six $100 million catchers in the history of this game. So I'm just looking around and I'm thinking, okay, like who is the position player that you're going to get traded for, Harry Ford? And like the tired answer is, oh, Luis Robert, things like that. But no, because the White Sox wouldn't grab a third major league ready catcher when they already have Teal and Caro, and Robert is probably less valuable than Harry Ford at this point. They could go big fish hunting on the trade market with a guy like Harry Ford that you're dangling here.
Yeah. Oh, I was thinking about that. Funny enough, when I was updating the write up, and I'm thinking, hey, this guy could be maybe one of the best trade chips dangled
How,
in this off or in this deadline time. We'll see. I mean, maybe some other higher profile prospects could get dangled because the Cubs may be aggressive or whatever it may be, or all of a sudden now the Padres are potentially interested in Jaron
so
Duran
I'm
as
thinking, how much more than Harry Ford would you need to go and get Jerry Duran? Like, if you're Seattle, I think that would be a great fit for them.
I think you'd have to have a couple solid pieces to go with that. But if Harry Ford continues to play this way, I think that's a solid piece to start the conversation there. And with Kyle Teal, shipped out of town, Harry Ford would be a wonderful get for the Red Sox. I think that makes a lot of sense.
He'd be an awesome get. I also just think Will Abreu for Harry Ford straight up makes a lot of sense too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the Red Sox, like they may start moving at that point, and that'll be really interesting to see if that is the case. As we go farther along in this 80 range, this 90 to 81 range, I'm looking at two guys, Red Sox and Yankees, stacked at 84 and 85. Justinson Garcia, the password, is mashing with Worcester at the AAA level, and he's in the mid 80s right now. 44 games for Justinson Garcia this year, hitting 294 with an 849 OPS. He's got 4 homers and 2 doubles in his first 11 games in Worcester. What pushed the password into the top 100?
I think seeing the approach not do him in because he's aggressive. There's no doubt about that. But seeing that he can get away with being aggressive, it's not egregious, right? It's like about a 30% chase rate. But
Yeah.
seeing that he can get away with that and still succeed in the upper levels. You saw it in double A, and now you're seeing it in triple A, whereas usually that's where the chase will rear its head. The defense, I think, is a little bit overvalued by the industry, just in my opinion. I think he's can play a solid corner. I don't think he's a center fielder. Maybe he could kind of be a center fielder in a pinch kind of guy. But what ended up moving him up for me is you're seeing him elevate consistently, hits the ball really hard. And again, that chase rate not doing him in and the ability to make contact outside of the zone, despite what I thought could be a bit more of a rigid, stiffer swing at times. It seems like there's enough fluidity and mobility there to be malleable in the box. So being able to do that despite being just this power muscle hamster looking guy, I think is really elevated the hit tool for me and again hedged some of the concerns about where the approach could potentially hold him back. I'm interested to see though as pitchers adjust and try to get him to chase more if that happens, but he chases more on the fastball side. He tries to ambush and he does seem to recognize spin all right, and that did help a lot with the overall outlook.
Carlos Legrande of the New York Yankees is someone that was so far away from the top 100 coming into this year. It was hard to fathom. But Legrande is tapping into what everybody wanted to see. Happy belated birthday. He just turned 22 years old last week. He's 6'7", 195 pounds, and 6'7" might be conservative. That is a huge
Yeah.
human being. In the fall league, he was good in terms of run prevention, but he walked 15 and 8 2/3. And we're thinking, is this guy ever going to find the strike zone? Like last year, he made 8 starts. In 21 innings, he walked 20.
Yep.
This year, he made a correction, 41 and 2/3 with high A Hudson Valley. Legrand has a 4.1 ERA, but he's punched out 64 and walked 12. That's 14 strikeouts per nine and 2.5 walks per nine. If he was in the strike zone, like he was going to be top 100. No,
Oh, 100%. He wasn't near it. As you mentioned, like it was nowhere close. If you include the Arizona Fall, we get a 53% strike rate last year. So, yeah, it wasn't really much of a consideration because of that. Now, this year, he's walking 7% of batters. And it's not just that. You watch the delivery, it's smooth. It just seems like it didn't even look like he should be that erratic last year. And that was kind of the frustrating part. You're trying to figure it out. You're saying it's pretty slow, control, smooth. I understand he's got long limbs and long levers, and the arm action can be, you know, longer, so it's difficult to just time up. But it didn't make sense for him to be walking 20 something percent of batters. But then clearly it was just some sort of cue or slight change that he needed to make. It's not like his mechanics are totally different. And you see a 67% strike rate this year, a 7% walk rate. And not just that, his average fastball velocity is up a tick and a half. He's
wow.
averaging 98.2 miles per hour this year. So you have a guy sitting 98.2 with drastically improved command, a good gyro slider, a good sweeper, and a changeup that has actually looked impressive when he's mixed it in as well. I mean, he has been dynamite every single start this year except for one. He had one kind of rough outing against Winston-Salem. Every single other outing this year, it's been 2 walks or less and 8 strikeouts or more. I mean, that's ridiculous stuff.
Hmm. I would like the TLDR on three guys here, and I want one sentence explaining all three. Slade Caldwell of the Diamondbacks, Arun Escobar of the Phillies, and Jacob Reimer of the Mets. Start with Caldwell. One sentence. Go.
Ridiculously fast and disciplined. Defense is great in center field. Just got to monitor the end zone whiff a little bit.
That felt like a sentence and a half, maybe
Got a
three
run
half
on.
sentences. I'll keep it. Yeah, some semicolons in there. Arun Escobar of the Phillies. Go.
Breakout. Healthy. Which is a breakout period. Does that count? Am I done?
No, it's fine. It's
Uh,
fine.
He's healthy this year, and you're seeing the results. Second base profile, but it's above average hit and power potential, and he could also be a really good trade chip.
That was definitely three sentences.
Too
And
hard,
then
man.
I know. And then the last one, Jacob Reimer of the Mets.
Made some swing adjustments heading into this year, and the power is ticked up. The field to hit has improved, and he is lighting it up in a very tough place to hit in high A Brooklyn.
That was one sentence. There were a couple commas in there, but that was one sentence. Good job.
Okay.
Okay, let's move into the next clumping here, 80 to 71. And there are some interesting names that jump out in this 80 to 71 clumping. The one that really sticks out to me, you got Robbie Snelling in the high 70s, but then you got Caleb Bonham of the White Sox. And Bonham was a guy that had a lot of first round buzz last year during the draft process. He was a high school shortstop. But then it just kind of felt like he fell by the wayside and he was an overslot grab second round by Chicago. What has Bonham done to prove that he was a first round caliber talent?
Our guy Elijah Evans, who does great stuff with Future Sox, was letting me know it quite often about the buzz that Bonham was creating in the Bridge League last year, which was kind of this league that
Bridge
they
League that no
told
one
nobody
knew
about.
about. No
Yeah,
one knew about.
this top secret league that they spawned for, which great idea for guys that just got drafted that they didn't want to assign to full season ball to just kind of play each other. And Bonham was a guy that really stood out. Tyson Lewis as well was a guy that created some buzz with what he did out there. And so I was hearing Elijah saying, "Oh, the White Sox are really, really excited about Bonham." I'm like, "All right," but I honestly kind of stowed it away. And then you saw what he's doing this year through 44 games. And it's like, okay, now I can understand why he was generating the buzz. He may ultimately move to third, but the fact that he looks like he has a chance to stick at short is encouraging. But what's really stood out with Bonham is you have above average exit velocities comfortably. I'd say plus exit velocities and really impressive patience in the box as well. He's running a chase rate of like 16%. The contact rates are solid, and it's a really simple swing that doesn't really have much movement. Again, almost bordered on stiff at times, but it seems like he has enough malleability there. That is a guy that I am a little bit more worried that he could be stiff to where he's only doing damage in the zone and may not be able to spoil tough pitches as much, but not as much of a concern with a guy who's chasing only 16% of the time. So you have the power potential, the plate discipline, a chance to stick it short or play a really good third, and the power to be able to handle a move to third, and already hitting the balls at right angles there. I think Bonnemer is a guy that will be on every top 100 list by the midseason.
Another slipper in the 2024 draft was Mike Sirota, and Sirota was taken in the third or fourth round by Cincinnati, and
Mm-hmm.
Sirota was the trade return for Gavin Lux. So Mike Sirota is now a Dodger prospect. Northeastern was underwhelming based on expectations set for him playing at Northeastern in
Mm-hmm.
Boston. He's going to play against very light competition at the college level. He didn't have a 1500 OPS like everybody needed him to be a first round talent. Now we're seeing the tools shine through. And I think by WRC Plus, he's been the best hitter in full season minor league baseball this year. And I'll
Yes.
pull that up to confirm that. But is it simply what he's done in professional baseball in 2025 that gets him on this list?
To be honest, I was a little bit more skeptical out of the gate. And so I can already hear because it's a Dodgers guy, right? Like no, if he was doing this with the Reds,
Yeah,
I,
but
I
you love
promise.
the Dodgers. You have a ton
Yeah,
of bias towards the Dodgers, and
yeah,
I,
we'll
I
get to
think it's
that.
a problem, and I think we got to talk about that off camera.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been going to someone for it, been talking about
Good,
it, but
yeah,
it's 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 insane. I know people are very sick of Yankees and Dodgers prospects. Really has nothing to do with this. Actually, what's funny is several. I again going in through this process as we started this process. Sirota was the process of updating everything. He was still in low A, so I'm like, okay, college guy mashing in low A. Let's see him do it in high A. But even during that time, the feedback that I was getting from a lot of different people in the industry and even people that rivals of the Dodgers, right? Like say Sirota looks like a top 100 guy to me. And then in that span, he gets promoted to high A. And I understand it's a small sample, but it's not like he's blinked at high A either. At the time that we're recording this, he's played 9 games there and he's hitting 438 with
yeah,
a 1250 OPS. The other side of it is I never thought Sirota was going to have this much power. He's hitting the ball harder with wood than he did with metal last year at Northeastern by a massive margin. His 90th percentile exit velocity is 108 miles per hour. That's plus plus territory. His hard hit rate is 60%. And there's going to be some in zone whiff, but he doesn't chase and he can play center field and a decent center field at that or a great corner. So just from that alone, I think all of a sudden here, you're seeing why the Dodgers targeted him in that deal, why they've been scouting him for a long time, and why he was at one point a
yeah,
first round prospect. Sometimes I think the weight of slipping in a class can almost just the momentum almost becomes too much and the snowball gets too big and we let a guy fall too far. I think we even said it at the time of the draft. We loved that pick by the Reds.
yeah.
But you had an opportunity to get a big league guy that's helping your team. But also, this was a very targeted prospect in return, I think, for the Dodgers. And whatever they have done with him, he's clearly been able to unlock like significantly more power.
Yeah, all we heard about was how much the Dodgers loved him when they traded for him. It was like, oh, the Dodgers ID'd Soroka, at Northeastern, but I think in high school too. They've been tracking him for a while, and that was like very
I was
well
like, yeah, yeah,
documented for some
yeah.
reason. Yeah, it's like, oh, whatever, okay. And now, kind of get it, kind of get
He's
it.
got a
Who are you?
90th percentile of 108.
Yeah,
That's like one,
that's big
one of the
time.
best figures in the entire organization.
We were just talking about Kyle Stowers, who's like 90th percentile right now is 109, and that's one of the best marks in baseball right
Yeah.
now. And like Sorota's a tick off of that in low A. Now, granted, he's a college kid in low A, but in low A,
High
and
A
then a
now.
couple games in high A. Yeah, a
Yeah.
week,
Yeah, but
a
it is
week in
mostly.
high
Yeah.
A. Who are you more sick of ranking, Ethan Salas of the Padres or Owen Casey of the Cubs?
Oh, great question. Um, I'd say I'd say Owen Casey just because he's stuck at the same level, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like okay, but what am I supposed to look for with this guy at this point? He's a guy that I almost think would benefit from. I think the strikeout rate may actually improve a little bit when he has a big league situation where he can be locked in, have the information at his disposal that comes with being at the big league level, and really be reinvigorated again. I think there's certain examples from time to time of guys that someone just go stale in AAA, and I
Yeah.
think you're kind of seeing that with Casey. I'm not saying he's not bought in or anything like that, but you have to imagine there's going to be a different level of preparation and attention to detail when you get called up to the big leagues than when you're doing, another year in AAA. I understand that there's not much you can do right now because there's not really a spot for him.
Yeah.
But in terms of raw power, it's as good as anybody in minor league baseball. In terms of getting into that power, he's proven to be able to do that comfortably over the last couple years. The strikeout rate's a little elevated this year, but he's been cutting it down as the season progressed. Remember, he got a little bit of a late start because of an injury, but I'd say I'm a little bit more exhausted of ranking him just because he's stuck there. Salas is
Hmm.
hurt, and I would love to see Salas like play a full season now, and we could see like maybe he finally settles in. This was kind of the year where it's like, okay, let's see it turn into production. And through 10 games, he had a 544 OPS. I'm not going to hold that against him. He was in Double A, and then he got hurt. So
Yeah.
that's what stinks is we're not going to get to see him until probably the back half of the year. And these are important reps for him because again, he's been very aggressively assigned, hasn't really been able to settle in at one individual spot. I came away encouraged with the Arizona Fall League, and then it's like, okay, well, instead of going back to high A, he's going to be super challenged again as a 18-year-old, just turned 19 yesterday in Double A, and so now we have a guy that has a sub 600 OPS in his career. He's going to be
Yeah.
out for a couple months, and I'm supposed to rank him. I don't freaking know.
It's
So
tough.
it's tough.
Yeah. All right. We're going to get to 70 through 61 in a moment. Before that, we'll take our first break. Okay, continuing on with RM Layton's top 100 update. I would call this the midseason top 100 update, but it's like the 1/3 top 100
Yeah.
update. June 2nd or June 3rd, pardon, that Tuesday is the release of this. Are we expecting another around the All Star break? Is that when we're going to get it?
Yeah, we'll get a full fledged midseason update as well. There were just so many graduates that
Yeah,
we gotta spruce this thing up, and
sure.
I was excited to be able to do that because we have so many newcomers and so many movers as you'll see as we continue to climb. But we'll definitely have another midseason update as well.
Got you. 68 and 69. These guys are, back end of the 61 through 70 range. Ryan Sloan of the Mariners and Charlie Soto of the Twins. These seem like two guys that you're bought in on the mound.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and you know it because I bug you about both of them all the time, but Soto a little bit more. Unfortunately, Soto hit the IL with I think it was a little bit of like a triceps issue, but they said it was
Okay.
minor for the Twins, and he should be back relatively soon. I think honestly, his arm just hadn't caught up to how hard he was throwing, and it was kind of similar to what we saw with Ryan Weathers with the Marlins, where it was like, oh, he's throwing gas now, and his body almost said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I need a moment to
Yeah.
recalibrate here. Soto upticked to 97 and a half through his first three starts this year. Just for comparison, he was sitting about 95 and a half last year, but it wasn't just the uptick in velocity. Remember, this is a guy that was a first round pick, but was a converted infielder, had barely really pitched until the end of his high school career. So he kind of threw like an infielder. And then you could tell this offseason really worked to be more pitcherish. And we've seen the results of that. Instead of just having this dead zone fastball, he has way more carry on this fastball that's ticked up by 2 miles per hour. And now he has a sinker as well. So he's got this four seamer with carry and a sinker off of that. Then the slider was much improved,
Yeah.
which was a pitch that, was lagging behind his changeup that he's always had. And then the changeup is the changeup. I think it's one of the better changeups in the minor leagues when he's commanding it. And it was dominant last year. And now you have that pitch with all of these other offerings surrounding it. I think it's only going to make it better. So Soto, as long as he comes back healthy, he's still just 19 years old as well for the almost the entirety of the season.
Yeah.
I think he has as much helium, barring health, as just about anybody in the minor leagues pitching wise.
Battle for the DHs. I mean,
Oh, I should have said Sloan. I forgot.
Sloan, Ryan Sloan.
Yeah, sorry, my fault. This is a little bit of a different case. He looks like he's been pitching his whole life.
Yeah, dude.
And you put him in the Mariners org, 6'5", 220, easy, smooth delivery. The characteristics aren't as off the charts, but he's 19 years old with, again, it's as aesthetically pleasing of a delivery as you have in the lower minor leagues for sure.
Yeah.
Sits 95. Sweeper's gross already. That's a comfortably plus pitch. And he's already started to flash the splitter that looks like it could be pretty good. You have like this template, and you look at the organization and the George Kirby's and the Logan Gilberts of the world that they've been able to develop, and you see Sloan, it's like he's on a hot, like just a fast track to be able to be I think a very, very exciting arm, but the template is just so sound there with the delivery, with the frame, and with the field of pitch.
I'm very high on both those guys, and I love that you're very high on both those guys. Three DHs kind of stacked. Las Montes, Charlie Condon, Xavier Isaac. Right now, you go in order from best to worst, quote unquote, but they're both, all three are stacked in this top 100. You go Isaac, Montes, Condon. Why?
So Condon, it's funny because it's interesting where we were lower on Charlie Condon out of the draft, right? We had Cags ranked ahead of him, and I know that was somewhat unpopular. We had a couple other guys, ranked ahead of him, and um, now I think it's almost gotten to the point where he's become overhated, and now it's like we're seeing him booted off a top 100 list and stuff like that, and I'm like, that might be a little bit reactive. Like we got to give this guy a chance to adjust a little bit to
Yeah.
professional baseball. He's coming off of a wrist issue. They're also not having him learn left field or third base anyway. They're going to put him at first and they're going to let him hit and focus on mashing. And since he's come back from this wrist issue, he's actually been really good. So again, I was lower on him because I had some concerns about the swing path and just the patterns of his moves and defensive home and all that stuff. But again, I think we've got to the point now where it's become overhating and we're maybe pushing him a little bit too low. That said, he is 22 and there isn't much of a track record just yet outside of what he did in college, but we saw the struggles at the end of last year. He's coming off of injury. He's probably going to be limited to first base. So he's going to have to really slug. I think he can really slug, but the guys that are ahead of him have already proven the ability to do that a little bit professionally. And they're younger. So that's where you get the edge of like a Las Montes, who is probably going to give you less defensive utility, which is kind of crazy to say.
Yeah.
But he will, because Condon, I think, could play a good first, or again, could fake it in a corner. I don't even think Laz really fakes it in a corner. I think it's just not good.
Yeah.
But Laz is 20, has a 930 OPS in
Every
high A
year. Every year. It's
every
like
single
look
year.
look at every single stop of his career and tell me where he's sucked. He has not. Ever.
He hasn't. And what's wild is like, and sometimes I hate playing this game, but sometimes I think it's very valid. And I think in this instance, it's very valid. What would Las Montes have done at Georgia this year?
Oh, dude.
But that's how old Charlie Condon was, like almost
Right.
to the month.
Right.
So you imagine that, and it's like, okay, give Laz another year or two, and let's see if that hit tool can continue to come along to a point where he's able to get into that power even more consistently. But I will say, could be another trade chip for the Mariners. He's a great player, but with the limited defensive value, that could be a guy that you're okay moving
Do you know
in a deal for like a Jaron Duran.
Do you know
And
how
then
quickly I would jump on Harry Ford and Lazaro Montes for Jaron Duran if I were both sides?
that's honestly a great move. I think it would be great for all parties. I'm interested. I wonder if Duran actually gets floated though, if it's just Preller just trying to pry.
He could be.
Dennis Lynn had that report, and
He
then
could be.
this is a little bit out on a limb because I could really understand people being Montes over Isaac, Xavier Isaac of the Rays organization. But the way I look at it is both have some whiff concerns, no doubt.
Yeah.
And Isaac's whiff concerns became more significant when he got to Double A. Like if you compare high A data, Isaac and Montes' data are pretty comparable, and I think Isaac's a better athlete. The challenge though is Montes has a little bit more time, and maybe he does respond better to Double A than Isaac does. The difference is I think Isaac has some of the best raw power in all of the minor leagues. Of course, Cags is in his own department, but Xavier Isaac has the ability to, I think, hit balls, you see 470 plus feet.
Yeah.
He's already hit home runs this year, 115, 116 miles per hour. His hard hit rate is 70% through 24 games this year. And his 90th percentile is 111. That's probably, aside from Cags, that might be the best mark in the minor league. So it's a little bit riskier, I think, but also with the DH type, I'd rather roll the dice on a guy that could hit 40. I think Laz hits 30.
Yeah.
I think Condon as well. I think Isaac can hit 40.
Last guy in this clumping is the Marlins catcher, Joe Mack, who is in AAA right now. Augustine Ramirez just graduated from prospect rank, so you don't have Augustine ranked here, but
some people didn't even rank him.
I know, which is crazy. But Why is Joe Mack 61? Like, what has he done? Obviously, he's been hitting the crap out of the ball, and he hit the crap out of the ball last year, man. Most pitcher-friendly league in baseball. He had 22 homers with Pensacola after a great start with High A. This guy gets insane reviews defensively and just the
Oh,
way he handles a pitching staff. Is he the best defensive catcher in the minor leagues, number one? And number two, why did he jump this much? Was it what the bat showed you?
yeah. So to answer one, I think a healthy Jefferson Caro is
Sure.
that, but remember he jacked his shoulder up pretty good, and it may take a little bit of time for that that arm strength to come back
Yeah.
and for him to fully get back to himself. But I think he's in that conversation. You'd be hard pressed to find a better defensive catcher presently. I think you could look at Ethan Salas and say, well, give him 3 more years and he may be better than Joe Mack. But at this present moment, I think he's up there with just about anybody because of the receiving, the way that it's graded out, because of the catch and throw skills and the arm strength. But that was always there. I think seeing that elevate from above average to comfortably plus was helpful. But then it was still also, okay, well, is he going to be able to provide enough offense to be an everyday catcher? Of course, being that good defensively lowers the bar of the offensive need to, be an everyday catcher. But I'm thinking, okay, how does he get to average big league production? It's going to be walking more and slugging. And he had a higher chase rate in the past. This year and last year, he cut that down for the first time in his career below 30% and then cut that further below 25%, specifically against spin, too, where you've seen the chase rate against spin is below 20%. So that's a huge development for him. And I think that really helps hedge the concern around the hit tool, which is probably still going to be below average. Then you also saw him start to hit the ball harder than ever, too. And he's still trying to get into that power in AAA. I think there's just a natural learning curve there. And he's also just taking on what comes with being a AAA catcher defensively.
Yeah.
But just seeing that the raw power look like it's comfortably plus as well, it made me comfortable enough to where I'm like, if he's a 30 hit tool, he's still going to slug and walk enough to be able to be an everyday above average big league catcher because of the defensive ability. And I think we're seeing him slowly chip away at some of the whiff concerns as well.
Got you. All right. Next clumping here is 60 to 51. And there's some youth in this clumping as well. But jumping out in this clump, I see Gage Jump of the Athletics. And Gage Jump is a guy that a lot of people have probably never heard of. But he was, what, LSU, and he was fine
Yeah.
last year. How has he burst onto the scene?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's probably been the biggest surprise this year. You saw a fastball that always had great characteristics, but he averaged 93 last year. He's averaging 95 this year on the fastball, and the command is just even better. 72% strike rate on the pitch. But the other thing that's unique with him is he has now improved both of his secondaries, or both of his breaking balls, I should say, both of which were just not there for him much in college. It was 63% fastball usage, and he just let it eat. It's still about 55% fastball usage now, but not because he doesn't have the breaking balls. It's because no one can hit the fastball. His opponents are hitting 160 against it with a 450 OPS.
Wow.
But you also have to respect the breaking balls where he's got a curveball, a slider, and a sweeper. At least that's what TrackMan says. But the tough part in game planning for a guy like this, and I've talked to some hitters who faced him, is
Yeah.
that their reports that they get is actually just two breaking balls. But whether it's intentional or not, he throws different shapes. And like some are going to be a little bit harder and shorter breaking. Some are going to sweep a little bit more. Some are going to be more downer breaking. But the thing is even with the variance in shapes, he's landing them for a strike consistently. So it's this like effective wildness that's not wild. It's more like effective variation of shape.
Yeah.
64% strike rate on the breaking balls. So having that on top of the elite fastball, he's really hard to game plan for. He's filling up the zone. And then you just look at the surface level numbers. He's been utterly dominant. And you sometimes wonder, okay, college arm, great fastball. Maybe he's just overwhelming high A hitters. Through 4 starts in double A, 25 innings, a 0.72 ERA. That's 2 earned runs,
Wow.
15 hits, 29 strikeouts, and just 5 walks. By the way, 52% ground ball rate too. So just nobody
I
is
just
looking comfortable against him right now.
I just wonder how a fastball like that profiles into a 52% ground ball rate. Like it does it
Which is
make
wild, yeah, because
sense?
the ground ball rate on the fastball is 35%. And
Yeah,
then
so everything else is a ground ball machine because like I don't know. I guess you're so geared up to try and meet a fastball up so then the barrel's over every single secondary. Is that the
Yep.
reaction there? Is that the human? Like it's funny because we all we do is talk data points, right? Like that's really what we can see as normal human beings. But then I'm just thinking about the normal hitter reaction. They gear up for this 55% heater. They're putting the barrel a little bit higher than they feel like they should against a typical fastball. And then when he drops like a tight turning breaking ball, they're just going to top it and they're going to
Yep.
grounded. So like, wow, breaking.
And he has this like hesitation in his delivery, which
Yeah,
I know we talked about on the call up. Like it's a slight, just like what would you describe it as? As that arm swings back, it's like a almost a pump fake in a way. Like
yeah. It's not even a pump fake. It's like honestly, I don't know how I would describe it. It's almost like a delay. Like it's a
it's like a little
split.
hesitate. It's not even a hesitation. It's just like a jerk down, hold it for a little bit. It's just disruptive.
It's Kikuchi-ish. That's what I
Yes,
would compare it to. It's
yeah.
Kikuchi where like it holds in a place that nobody in their right mind holds it.
And you can't really see the ball. And then the fastball is 18 inches of vert from a 5.5 release height, which is well above average carry. That's comfortably plus carry.
Yeah,
And then I think the other part of it is yes, you're gearing up for elevated heat, and then also you have this variance in breaking ball shape where some are gonna dive more than you expect and you roll over. So it's really fascinating to see the way that he's able to keep hitters uncomfortable, keep them off balance. And I mean, the A's looks like an absolute just heist here for
yeah,
an org that goes so hitter heavy all
yeah.
the time. They found an arm that now is early looking like one of the better arms in the draft.
It's crazy, man. Let's jump into the top 50 here, and I want to go right to 50. Arjun Namala of the Blue Jays has had as much variance within top prospect lists as anybody. He was on the development list at this
Yeah.
point last year, I think. Why is he back to being a top 50 prospect in the game? Or why is he a top 50 prospect in the game for the first time in his career? Again, just a year removed from being so bad that he needed to be on the development list.
Well, you remember, I know you were on the train too. We loved him out of the draft. You saw the just
I don't know what I love because it really like who I love and who I hate is just based on you. And then it's also based on what I read from people that I trust. So Arjun, I was like, Aram loves him. So I'm so fired up about Arjun Namala.
valid. And the thing that was exciting was you had this guy that added so much more power and exciting bat speed. It looked like he could not only stick it short but play an above average short. And you said, okay, well maybe a little bit of a project here, but um, everything is heading in the right direction heading into his pro career as a guy that was young for the class. So you had this patience here. But the Blue Jays were a little bit aggressive with him, and that was fine. But all of a sudden, you see him kind of start his pro career and just really struggle to stay on spin, and his mechanics started to unravel a little bit. And that's when they put him on the development list. And upon going on the development list, a big focus was kind of maintaining his direction, right? Because he likes to pull the ball in the air, and that's a big part of why he's going to be able to slug. But at the same time, how do you stay closed, maintain that direction while not compromising your ability to pull the ball in the air? So trying to find that balance, find the moves and cues that work for him. He came back, made some subtle adjustments, and you saw the results. And pretty much since he's come off that dev list, if you combine this year and the end of last year, 102 games, he's a 905 OPS in
Wow.
that span. But what stands out to me as well is in making those adjustments, he looks much less rushed in the box. The chase rate dropped significantly. The contact rates improved. And then I think he's just naturally getting stronger and more physical. He's 19 years old. So you're seeing the EVs improve a little bit. And now he's seeing, oh, well, I don't have to sell out for the pull as much. I
Yeah.
can leave the yard to dead center and the other way. So now he's still quick enough to react inside and pull inside, or in his advantage counts, he's recognizing pitches as well enough to, sit back and hunt something that he can pull. But you're also seeing a guy that can still do damage when he's not fully selling out for that damage. So that was huge for him as well. And to see him maintaining that in high A, remember this was dev listed in low A, now succeeding in high A, that is a huge shift.
Yeah.
Even if he was just treading water in high A, I think he'd probably be in the back end of this top 100. So to be succeeding in high A,
Yeah.
I think that says a lot about him.
I love Eduardo Tait, top 50 prospect in baseball for the Philadelphia Phillies, a young catcher. But there is a stack here in the 40s that jumps out to me. And it's Johnny Farmello of the Seattle Mariners coming in the mid 40s. And just above him is Kobe Mayo of the Baltimore Orioles. And I just find the difference in them to be fascinating because you've got Farmello, who is such an exciting project that has so much tread left on his tires because of that ACL tear last year. He looked so good before it, and he's looked so good coming back from that ACL tear. Versus Mayo, it's not that he's free fallen, but he was a top 10 prospect in the game. He's slid a bunch, and is that just because he hasn't had a big league opportunity? Like when he's gotten up, he struggled. And then in AAA, he's been awesome. But I mean, at some point, like you just get tired of a guy like Mayo being in AAA, and that's no fault to Kobe Mayo. That's fault to Mike Elias and the Baltimore Orioles. I just found this stack really interesting, and I guess I don't really have a question attached to it.
No, it's valid, and it was something I was trying to be honest with myself on too, because it's like, well, how what has he done to fully slip Mayo, from where he was? I think some of it is that prospect fatigue, maybe, and the excitement of some other guys that it is a what have you been doing for me lately type
Sure.
of industry. But at the same time, I ranked Kobe Mayo as high as I did in the past, predicated on the fact that I thought he could stick at third, and that was probably a misread by me. I think he can play third. I think he's passable at points there, but the defense has not really progressed the way I thought it would. And
Got
so
it.
they've been giving him a lot more reps at first base, and I think he can be more than fine there. And again, it could be a guy that you plug in at third.
Yeah.
But with the work ethic, with the arm, with the just some of the film that I'd watched, it seemed like he was heading in that direction to where he could be good enough. And then it just seemed to back up a little bit last year, and especially at the big league level where the game just looked a little bit quick. And then it's really tough to draw a ton from the major league samples. Like I don't want to do that at all. But when it's that rough, like we're talking 22 strikeouts and 45 plate appearances, it's
Yeah.
a little bit tough. And then early so far this year, it's just been a lot of whiff. And so then I start to wonder if the rigid aspects of that swing and the sellout for pull side may just create too much of an issue against sliders. And even if you combine the AAA numbers this year against sliders, he's hitting 130.
Wow.
So I'm starting to wonder if he's a little bit more easy to execute a game plan against maybe than we had thought because he was so successful in AAA. He's got time. It's not the end of the world or anything like that, but being limited to first now, some challenges with secondaries, got to really slug. And so I just thought the pressure being placed on the bat and
Yeah.
the struggles at this point kind of made it tough. But he's also a guy that's just in the department of I'm tired of ranking him and I don't really know what to do because it's apples to oranges. Because to your
Yeah.
point, I have to compare this guy who's up and down from AAA and
To
proving that he can
Farmello.
AAA
Yeah.
to Farmello, who could continue to get better and better and better coming off of injury. Missed a little bit of time the last couple of weeks. I think maybe it was a little bit of a management with that knee issue or was something else. I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
could stick in center field, absolutely flies, has been productive, does have some swing and miss concern, but has hedged that since becoming a pro. The
Yeah.
approach is good and has just been incredibly productive since he's been on the field. But he's 20 in high A. So
Yeah.
we're just comparing two totally different players and situations.
As we get to 40 through 31, there are two groups of two in this that sit within the same organization, and this is the NL East clump. And it's really cool to see the Mets blossom the way that they have because you got Carson Benj, who snuck inside the top 40, their first round pick last year, and then Nolan McLean, the former two-way guy that's a full-time pitcher now. Why are Benj and McLean top 40 prospects in baseball for the New York Mets?
Well, I think you're seeing in real time how much better the Mets player development infrastructure is. It's starting to look a little bit more Milwaukee Brewers-ish, right? And I think you're definitely seeing that with the players, just the improvements that we're seeing. We talk about Jacob Reimer, Met, who just broke out this year, and then you take a Bench, who was a guy that we had as a top 10 prospect in the draft, and ended up slipping to them a little bit later towards the back end of the middle of the first round. And I think you're seeing all of a sudden here, this was a guy that we said, hey, he's a two-way player, legitimate arm in college as well, very skinny, wiry, strong.
Yeah.
Imagine when you can really focus on hitting and put some more strength on and see what that looks like for him. And we're seeing it in real time where the hit tool was always there, the approach was always there, but now he's hitting the ball harder than ever. Another guy that's hitting the ball harder with metal than or with wood than he was with metal. A 90th percentile exit velocity of 106 is ridiculous. He's striking out less than 20%. He's starting to slug a little bit where no one slugs, in Brooklyn there with the wind whistling off of Coney Island. But when you look at just the field to hit, the burgeoning power, and the ability to stick in center field too, I was really impressed with what we saw in the spring breakout game. And then you look at what he's been able to do so far. Just again, dominated low A last year for the most part. Has been even better this year in high A. I think could be a guy that ends up getting pushed up to double A relatively soon. I mean, you have a 925 OPS hitting over 300 and walking at a 16% clip. And I think there's even more game power to tap into there as he finds a little bit more consistency with his timing. McClain, it's the opposite, right? He was
Yeah.
hitting, and now you can focus on just pitching here.
And he's
The
been
guy that was
amazing.
capable of ripping 3,000 RPM breaking balls, 3,200 RPM breaking balls. And the command was a little bit, and still is a little bit of a question. But now you're just seeing a guy lean into pitching, and how impressive he is. He's just born to spin the ball. Like it's just that simple. He's got a sweeper, a fastball, a cutter, a sinker, a splitter, a curveball, and all of them you have to respect to a degree. And all of them are better than they were last year. And the sweeper might be the best sweeper in minor league baseball. Like it's right there with just about any. The sharp and late break at 85, and then you have these two fastball shapes that he's starting to really succeed with a lot more, a low release, some built-in deception, a great athlete. And I think he's just going to keep getting better and better and better as he actually throws. This guy's barely thrown. He's thrown more entering this year. He's thrown more professional innings than he had thrown in college. So now you imagine as he continues to throw more, how much better he can get. He's already in AAA.
I'm trying to find like where spin rates kind of match up. Like I'm looking on Baseball Savant for like a spin rate leaderboard because a 3,200 RPM sweeper would be up there with any sweeper in Major League Baseball, right?
So
Like I
the
know
sweeper, I think the sweeper average is 2,900, and then the
29
curveball, he has a
curveball.
sweeping curveball that's
So
3,200.
like I'm just wondering where 3,200 would match up because you've got like I don't Seth Lugo's ripping off 3,000 RPM curveballs. I think he's kind of like but I just know that anecdotally that he's kind of the high guy when it comes to curveball spin.
Yeah. He has the highest spin rate on a curveball in MLB history, I guess. Trackman, since we've been tracking this at 30 or 3,498 RPM. But it's obviously not averaging that. Anybody over 3,000 is ridiculous. And if you're getting over 3,200, that's why you see this late sharp break from McClain that just you don't even it doesn't even really show up in the TrackMan data. It may break the same amount as others, but it's just so late because of the way that the ball spins out of his hand.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then the other clumping of guys are Nats, and it's Harleen Susana and Travis Sikora, who are both top 40 prospects in baseball. The Nats have one of the better pitching futures that we've got in baseball right now, and it feels like they have their frontline guy moving forward in Gore. Susana and Sikora are a year away at this point, year and a half away.
Depends on health with Susana. We again another guy that minor arm injury in the Nationals' words was kind of like a best case scenario. Should be back relatively soon. But this is a dude that of course came in that trade for Juan Soto from the Padres. All of a sudden last year started throwing strikes. And like that was the big question, right? He was like the throw in the deal where it was like, all right, here's a kid throwing 102 in the DSL, but we'll see if he throws strikes. And he wasn't really for a year or two there. And then 2024 starts going out at the stretch and just starts filling up the zone a lot more consistently. Not just with the fastball that averaged, by the way, 99.8 last year. He had the four seamer and the sinker. So he could get early contact, didn't feel like he needed to strike everybody out. But then the breaking ball was just utterly disgusting. And that was one of the more overwhelming breaking balls, I think, that at any level last year. And he landed that first strike at a 66% clip. So you have two fastballs touching 100, and then that banger breaking ball, and even a changeup that he'd mix in here or there. And that's enough, I think, to have hitters very uncomfortable and either grounding out or striking out. And I think he was the only pitcher in minor league baseball, if I'm not mistaken, that had a ground ball rate north of 60% and a strikeout rate north of 35%. So anytime you're
Wow.
doing that at 20 years old, you've got my attention. Then Travis Sikora, he was dominant last year. And I was actually just on Minors and Majors on MLB Network Radio
Yes.
and with Grant Paulson. And he does a great job, of course, keeping up with the national side of things. And he had mentioned that with Sikora, the Nationals had told him, hey, spend the whole year, in low A. We don't really care. We don't care who you're facing. We just want to see you throw and throw close to us. And that's why he just made mincemeat of these low A hitters because it was 3+ pitches. But now, after a delayed start due to the minor hip surgery that he had. We got our first taste of him at high A now, and through his first two starts at high A, it's 8 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 2 walks, 15 Ks.
Wow.
So I think when you have three pitches that could be plus, and you
Yep.
fill up the zone like he does with a little bit of a deceptive release too, he's probably going to dominate high A and double A too. Both these guys are going to be probably climbing in tandem if they're healthy, and I think both you can pencil into maybe the middle of the rotation as soon as 2027
And not a little bit of a deceptive
or
release, like
2026, I should
a
say.
fully deceptive release for Travis Sakura. He's a big boy that throws like he's small and malleable. It is really fascinating to watch. All right, we're going to wrap with the top 30 in baseball in a moment. Before that, one more quick break. All right, jumping into the top 30 in the game. And as it looks right now, you got some guys like Carson Williams was top 10. He slides to 30. He's been struggling mightily. I'm looking at this group and I see George Lombard Jr. inside the top 25. And I say, holy smokes, man. How did he get this high up?
I mean, him and Franco Arias, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the feedback that you just continue to get on both of these guys is crazy. And it's funny, you got a Red Sox prospect and a Yankees prospect, right? But
Yeah.
Lombard, he's a guy that you have, the bloodlines, his father playing in the major leagues, but you also have the fact that he was drafted as this like exciting upside. Let's see what can be, but we also really like what's already there in terms of the body and the projection and all of the ingredients. And uh, this is a guy that I'll talk to some professional baseball players and just even some big leaguers and say, oh, do you see any clips of that kid Lombard with the Yankees? They're like, oh my gosh, that swing is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like it seems it's a guy that major leaguers are like, whoa, I wish I was there when I was 19, 20 years old. But you've seen the defense just improve so much at shortstop. You've seen the power uptick when he made this pretty significant swing adjustment from last year to this year. And
Yeah.
then the approach is just elite. I mean, 14% chase rate, but it's not just a chase rate, it's the swing decisions. He controls his at bats like a veteran. The way he carries himself is like a veteran. It's the same thing with Franco Arias, but
Mm-hmm.
they both just are so ahead of their years, but you can also dream on more. So you're looking at a guy that right now, above average contact rates, minuscule chase, and decent EVs, but not fully getting into the game power yet, and a chance to stick it short. And you say, okay, that's a really solid high floor prospect. But then you remember 6'3", huge projection. Dad was a big leaguer,
Yeah.
and he's already doing what he's doing in high A or double A now, right? They fast tracked him to double A.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, this guy's already able to handle these crazy aggressive assignments, and he's still not even what he could ultimately be. So all the feedback I kept getting from this guy is that, I mean, again, not just because he's a Yankees guy, it's that he has some special ingredients when you look at the makeup, the feel for the game, the instincts, and then the projection as well when you look at the body and the athleticism.
Are you excited to keep ranking Jordan Lawler? Like the pre 2026 top 100 is probably going to have Lawler in it as well. He's got 56 major league plate appearances, and he just got optioned again.
It's starting to turn into like a Mayo situation, right? Or like,
Yeah.
yeah, he did get up there and get his doors blown off, but he barely played. And
And
I
he
went
played
back
like
and
once a week. Yeah.
yeah, and I watched like the last game he played up there. He like hit a home run that was like 2 feet foul, and then draws a walk, and then all right, see ya. So it was just not playing off, and it's really tough. But the glove is just too good at short.
Hmm.
The speed is too valuable, and he's gonna slug enough. So it's just a guy that I think is going to be a good big leaguer. It's just how good is going to be dependent on the hit tool and the ability to hit spin, and it is kind of similar to the Mayo conversation there. But Lawler can fly, can play a good shortstop, so
Yeah.
that's the difference there. But Lawler is going to need to prove that he can hit advanced spin too, and I absolutely am sick of ranking him. Absolutely.
I love it. Okay, top 20 here, 20 to 11, and then I'm going to have you do a sentence to two sentences on each guy in the top 10.
No
But
shot. I do only one sentence on number four.
that's fine. Four, yeah, that's fine. I'll give you four sentences on number four. But 20 through 11, there are some youngins that are in this clump, and I'm fired up to ask you about. Let's start quickly with Mizorowski at 20, the Milwaukee Brewers prospect, because Mizorowski has had some serious fluctuation in here too. I think he was in the 70s by the end of year update last year because we were looking at this guy as a surefire reliever, and now
Yep.
all of a sudden he looks like a legit starting pitching prospect and one of the best in all of baseball.
Until he walked six 2 days ago.
Oh, now he's back to 80.
Now he's back to 80. But until he walked six 2 days ago, he was in the midst of a stretch where 8 starts, 42 and 2/3 innings, a 7% walk rate in AAA, a 1.9 ERA. So that's 12 walks in 42 and 2/3 innings, 55 strikeouts. That's just electric stuff, and that's all. The stuff's never been a question, right? It's outlier fastball. It's like outlier cutter at like
Yeah.
94. Nasty sweeper, changeup that's good up mix. Like it's just been all about the command. I think what we're going to realize here is, and we throw this out a lot, but he is very cease-ish, where there's just going to be days where it's just like, oh shit, like the
Yeah, he
six
just
seven
doesn't have
lank
it.
machine is just not lining it up. It's just not going to happen today. Get the long man hot.
Yeah.
But when he's on, the bullpen can just take a nap, right, and come back tomorrow. So you're just going to have to deal with that variance. But we didn't see enough of the positive side of that variance. Now we have. The fact that he had that kind of stretch there is, I think, really, really encouraging. I have some concerns. Obviously, we'll see what happens, but that was enough for me to say, okay, it's in there. He's getting closer and closer. And again, the pitchability is even when it's not fully there. I think it's looked different this year than when he didn't have it last year. But he's never had it the way that he's had it when he's hot this year.
Got you. Teenager, now that I want to get to. Connor Griffin of the Pirates is a top 20 prospect in baseball. Bryce Rayner's very close. Griffin is better than Bryce Rayner. The physical tools are absolutely insane. And I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot of people listening to this show right now have seen highlights of Connor Griffin so far in low A. Aside from being a physical specimen, what about his refined game made him a top 20 prospect in baseball?
I won't lie. I was a little bit annoyed at first. I'm like, oh, the Pirates are going to put him at shortstop. Like you have a
He
potential
was
plus
center
plus center
fielder.
fielder.
Yeah.
Then I watched all of the defense this year at shortstop, and I realized why they're doing this. He's going to be great in center field. If you decide to move him that way in Double A, he'll make up for lost time. He'll be great out there. He's still playing there a couple times a week too,
Yeah.
to kind of just keep that fresh in his mind. He's good at shortstop too. Like I knew he'd be solid. I didn't think he'd potentially be plus. He looks fantastic at shortstop.
Cool.
So when you have a guy that could potentially be a plus shortstop, okay, now you start thinking about the long-term vision. O'Neill Cruz is in center, and that's kind of a different conversation here. So you want to have the ability to do both. He looks like he could be a plus shortstop, and so that was a huge shift for me. Then we saw the mechanical adjustments he made hitting wise going into this year, and they were kind of well documented. And I think that's really helped him just consistently beyond fastball and be a little bit more adjustable. I still have some concern about his ability to hit secondaries, but he's so much better bat to ball wise than he was as an amateur
Yeah.
that I think you can look at that and say he is so elevated to where even if he's a mistake hitter with his power, which is already plus plus for his age, his speed, which is plus, his defensive prowess, he doesn't need to be more than a 35 grade hitter to be a everyday baseball player at the highest level. But I think you're seeing that he has plenty of time to be an average hitter, and he's already making huge strides to do that. He's crushing fastballs. So if he can find a way to hit spin a little bit better,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy that could be a five-tool star and could be the top prospect in baseball.
Max Clark, aside from being a guest on the call up, what pushed him from the 30s, 40s to 15?
Yeah, it's just because he was on the show.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe.
no, so this is the so we're gonna write like a biggest risers piece, and I'm
Yeah.
sure Clark will be one of those. And it's one that I'm actually the most excited to write about because I did not envision him becoming one of the best bat to ball guys in the minor leagues. And it's kind of wild because maybe the only guy that's better bat to ball wise this year so far is his teammate,
Yeah.
um, who we'll get to. But you look at what Clark was doing last year. He was solid, very solid. But my concern with him and why we were lower on him was okay. He's probably a 55 grade hitter. The power is probably fringy. He's a great outfielder, but he puts the ball on the ground a little bit. And okay, so what's that profile? It's a very high floor, solid center fielder. But is he going to be an all-star? I don't know. And I also was concerned about his ability to hit secondaries, where if you look at what he was doing against non-fastballs last year for a guy that really needs to be a plus hitter to, be closer to that 60 grade future value, he had I believe, overall contact rate last year against secondaries of 66%.
Yeah.
This year, and he detailed all the mechanical changes he made, on the call up, and you can check that out. But this year against secondaries, overall contact rate of 82%.
Hmm.
That's not even close. Like that's just night and day. And last year that was with low A and high A, right? This is just high A this year. He's also cut his chase rate down significantly. And he talked about how he's bought in on, the approach side of things. And now that's been a huge aspect of his game. But even if he didn't talk about it, you can just see it in the numbers. Like it's very obvious. It's amazing to see that in zone contact rate jump to 92%. And
Yeah.
it's one of the best marks in the minor leagues. While the hard hit rate has jumped by almost 10% as well. He is fixed, like not fixed because it wasn't broken, but he has improved everything across the board. And I really didn't think he had a 60 plus hit tool in him. I thought it would be 55. And again, I still think the power, that's not going to be a big part of his game, but I think he's shown that he can sneak him out when he needs to. And that's something that he's leaned into more this year too. He said, I don't need to sell it for slug. I know if I focus on being a good hitter, I'll get to the slug when I get to the slug. But again, I would have never anticipated a 20% increase in contact rate against secondaries. That's just, I don't know if anybody in the minor leagues has leaped that much.
Luis Pena of the Milwaukee Brewers went from outside the top 100 to 12. How?
I mean, I had the same question for Brenton Del Chiaro as well. The assistant head of Brewers player development there, assistant director, because Pena was one of the best performers in the DSL last year, and
Yeah.
him and Jesus Mate skipped the complex, right? They went
Yeah.
straight to low end. Pena was like a slash and dash guy, though, meaning 70 runner, hit the ball on the ground. Maybe it's closer to 60 now that he's put on some strength, but that's part of the point here. Hit the ball on the ground and run. Play some good defense at short. You thought he'd be that speedster, throwback, top of the order type of guy. The Brewers identified a hitter that had a lot more power in the tank if he could find a little bit more loft in his swing and if he could get his lower half to work a little bit better. Because when they did some strength tests and just kind of checked in on how his body was moving, they realized that there were some inefficiencies with his hips and his lower body and some things that he could do to just make himself significantly stronger, even if it's not in a mass way, it's just in the way that you're moving.
Yeah.
And focused on that all off season at the complex, working with the team directly. And I talking about not seeing as big of a contact leap as anybody, like when we were talking about with Max Clark. I don't know if anybody's made as big of a power leap as Luis Pena has this year, where he's 18 years old. He'll be 18 years old until the middle of November. His hard hit rate last year was 27%, and his 90th percentile exit velocity was 100 miles per hour. His hard hit rate this year in low A, remember that was the DSL, in
Yeah.
low A is 44%, and his 90th percentile exit velocity is 106.5. That's off the charts for an 18-year-old. Through 29 games, even though he's battled some injuries this year, he's hitting 340, 410, 559 with a 10% walk rate and a 10% K rate. I mean, you're seeing a star blossoming here, I think, with Milwaukee because he's been able to tap into significantly more power. The hit tool is still looking like it's going to be plus. And
Yeah.
you start to talk to people, say, how big is the gap between Pena and Mate? If you ask the Brewers, it's marginal, if that.
Wow. Wow. And I think that's 7 Milwaukee Brewers on this top 100 update. I think it's 7. Tyler Black, is he on it? No, I don't think so, right?
Tyler Black just slid out finally.
Just
Another guy
slid
I was
out.
sick of ranking. But
Yeah.
again,
So
he's
I
a
think
just
it's
miss
7,
guy and he's great.
but I still think it's 7. So that's what you got right now. Okay. A sentence or 3 on number 4 for the top 10 prospects in Major League Baseball. And let's start with a guy that's debuting on Monday. Jack Caglione of the Kansas City Royals is your number 10 prospect in baseball. Why is Cags in the top 10?
I mean, he looks like Adam Dunn, but he may have better bat to ball when it's all said and done. Like we'll see. That's really it. It's 80 grade power, and the approach has gotten better. And he's playing the outfield. The fact that he can just play out there, that elevates a ton.
Number 9 is Samuel Basayo of the Baltimore Orioles. This guy has to be close to a debut.
Has to be, and that's part of the Cardinal or the Orioles conversation. Where it's
Yeah.
like, well, at what point does it pivot to just focusing on getting the young guys reps? He's one of the best bad ball hitters in the minor leagues. It's like a Rafi Devers starter kit, as we talk about.
Yeah.
But the exit velocities are 70 grade, and he's 20 years old, demolishing AAA competition. While even if it's below average defensive catcher, I think maybe it can get to the point where it's fringy.
Yeah.
If he's a first baseman, that bat's going to play.
Cool. Number 8, Dalton Rushing of the LA Dodgers, the catcher, man. He was top 10 in the preseason update, and he's top 10 now.
I don't know if people have changed their minds since and I know it's not listeners of the Just Baseball show as much, but since they
Yeah.
teed off on us for having Rushing in the top 10, does he look like a top 10 guy now? I know he hasn't been necessarily lighting it up at the big league level, but he's up there for a reason.
Yeah.
The defense is good. He hits the crap out of the ball. The approach is great. He's going to be a good big leaguer for a long time.
This guy might actually be Jesus made. Jesus Mate of the Milwaukee Brewers is number 7.
Just watch this guy swing the bat. Like, it's elite bat speed from both sides of the plate, great approach, and he's 18. Like, you don't see 18-year-olds doing this.
Your highest Dodger checks in at number 6, Zaire Hope. Why?
It, I don't know where to start with him because it's my favorite prospect.
Yeah.
Aside from number 4,
Yeah.
aside from number 4, you're talking about some of the best power below AA. And I think one of the more exciting power speed combinations. Everyone said, but the hit tool, but the hit tool, but the hit tool. He's not striking out that much. He's going to hover below 25%. He does not blink in terms of who he's facing. He's went backside off of Zaire or off of Chase Burns.
Yeah.
He took gauge jump deep. I don't think anybody else has done that either, really, on a curveball. It's one of the best swings mechanically in the minor leagues, and it's ridiculous twitch and explosion.
Rangers have a possible future superstar on their hands in Sebastian Walcott, who's number 5.
He's 19 years old. So he's a year older than Jesus Mate, and he's in AA succeeding.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. Even if he moves off of shortstop, I think this guy has a great chance of at least being Gino Suarez, which is a phenomenal career. But you can dream on even more when you're looking at a 6'4", 200-pound, 19-year-old who is already popping exit velocities of 117 miles per hour. There's more in there, and I am very excited to see what that more looks like.
Number 4 is Kevin McGonigal, the Detroit Tigers. Floor is yours.
This is the best hitter in the minor leagues. Just point by in terms of pure hitter, right? Roman Anthony is the best, most valuable all-around hitter, but Kevin McGonigal is the best pure hitter in the minor leagues. And the difference now is after being hurt to start the season, we're seeing him now settle in, and I mean, he has been ridiculous since he's come back. It is elite bat to ball, power that is severely underrated. And I think the most underrated part of his game is that he's not going to move to second base unless you need him to. He plays a good shortstop. I think he's a 50 grade shortstop. So if you're getting potentially 70 hit, power that looks like it could be pushing closer to average, elite plate discipline, and he sticks it short, how are there 5 prospects better than that guy? I think he's going to be a consensus top 10 prospect soon enough.
There aren't. There are 3 prospects better than that guy. Leo DeVries of the San Diego Padres. I mentioned on the call-up last week, 2 weeks ago, this actually finally feels like the guy that the Padres can speed run.
Yep. And I think if he acclimates to AA pretty well, that's where I think we'll start to see things kick into hyperdrive. But for his power to be where it's at already game-wise, as a switch-hitting teenager that they still have pushed pretty aggressively, you just wonder how good he's going to be as he continues to mature physically, where you could maybe be dreaming on, above average hit or at least average hit, plus plate discipline, plus power as a switch-hitting shortstop. Like, holy crap. But at the very least, you're seeing a guy that clearly can get into above average power and average hit from both sides of the plate. So it's funny because he's so far off technically from where he's at and how young he is, but the floor is relatively high when you look at the skill set and what he's already able to do. And then the ceiling, you can dream as high as you want.
Top pitching prospect in baseball, the number 2 prospect in the game is Bubba freaking Chandler of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's electric, man.
It's probably the best fastball in minor league baseball.
Yeah, and one of the best fastballs in baseball outright.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the characteristics, when you look at just the way that it explodes out of his hand and just explodes through the plate, I imagine the catcher's just got to be, his hand's got to be worn out by the time he's done, because it's running late into the pocket as well, where it's just, I can't imagine trying to catch up to that fastball, and then the changeup to where it's gotten to where that is a plus pitch off of it, and then he has that hard cutter as well. And the command, that's probably the last little piece here to find a bit more consistency there. But I mean, he can flip the glove a lot of the time, I think, and overwhelm hitters with the fastball. Triple A, he's throwing the fastball 50% of the time, and opponents are hitting 170. And
It's
then again,
amazing.
I think the development of that changeup, where opponents are 3 for 39 against it this year, has really elevated both the fastball, but the combination together. And then you have that third pitch, cutter or slider that is an elite third offering.
Every single start, like I check in and I'm just dumbfounded by what he's doing. It's like, oh, more of the same, rinse and
Yep.
repeat for Bubba. He is overdue for a debut at this point. Another guy overdue for a debut is your number one prospect
You
in the
think
game.
so?
Do you have anything new, unique, and sexy to add on Roman Anthony of the Boston Red Sox?
No, I'll just give you a fun stat.
Cool.
Against four seamers and sinkers this year, he's hitting 452, 585, 806. That's a
Yeah.
1392 OPS
Come
and a
on.
93% in zone contact rate. What the Red Sox might point towards is, oh, well, he needs to be better against secondaries, for us to bring him up here. Well, how do you get a guy to buy in on being better against secondaries when he's just not struggling at all? And even then, like, look at the secondary OPS, it's about a 636. So like that's the one little hole you could poke. He's hitting 303, 430, 492. It's a 922 OPS with as many walks as strikeouts. And the EVs are elite, and he's chasing at an 18%, 17.5% clip. He needs to be challenged, or else these things, the little things that you want to see get refined, are just not going to. So I hope that he gets challenged soon because he's an absolute monster.
And that, my friends, is a podcast. Top 100 is live now. What do you got? Anything?
I was gonna say last thing is we have the Discord where I'm gonna be doing live Q&As, answering all questions as they pertain to the top 100, which you can join with the link in the episode description. We got a special deal going, right? $35 for the rest of the season. So would love to have you in there, answer all of your questions on the top 100. And beyond that, and it's been a blast just helping people with their dynasty leagues, doing box breaks, all that stuff that we've always plugged. But specifically, if you were on the edge and wanted something to kind of drive you to do it, and you got 30% off the rest of the way, and going to be answering top 100 questions all week.
That's what it is, baby. All right. We will talk to you on Thursday.